After 2 years of development, the first act of Blizzard and Baator is almost here. I recently spoke with the design team and they have been busy since I talked to them back in August. So in this video, I'll cover what's new in Act 1 and break down the latest trailer. If you've been trapped on their ice for the past 2 years or so, Blizzard and Baator is the first story mod for Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition, and for Planescape Torment itself since all attempts at creating story mods have failed thus far. First, the obvious question, when is it coming out? Well, the exact launch date of Act 1 is still unknown. However, after my recent talks with the team, the first half of 2026 seems like a realistic release window. Now, a practical update for those anxious to replay Torment. It's about using existing saves. Back in August, I said you can't use old saves to start Blizzard and Baator, but this is no longer true. The team figured out a way to make them work as long as they are from the Enhanced Edition. So if you want to prepare for the mod beforehand, now is a good time to start playing. You need to get to the point where the Nameless One is back in Sigil from Carceri. As for the content, Act 1 has been theoretically done for a while and originally scheduled for release in late 2025. However, the team decided to postpone the launch to polish the mod better. What exactly were they polishing? Well, Act 1 of Blizzard and Baator features 40 new areas, and the full version is supposed to grow that to 110. We will also find more than 100 new items in Act 1 and meet more than 200 new NPCs. The script is over 1,000 pages long. And speaking of pages, you can beat Act 1 without penning any Berk into the dead book. The full mod is supposed to uphold this approach, although it allegedly isn't easy to be a pacifist in Blizzard and Baator. On the audio side, over a dozen voice actors recorded lines for some of the new characters in Act 1. The soundtrack to Act 1 consists of 25 tracks, totaling 70 minutes of atmospheric music. And yes, this is exactly what you're hearing in the background. Finally, the animated cutscenes. I know what you might be thinking. What is this crisp, high-definition crap, right? Well, you'll be glad to know that you will be able to select glorious low-res video upon installation for consistency with the existing ones. Speaking of installation, Blizzard and Baator will work on Windows, obviously, Steam Deck, Linux, and macOS. I asked the team if there's any chance Android will get the mod someday. And while I didn't hear an explicit no, don't hold your breath. On the other hand, using old saves was also supposed to be impossible because of engine issues, and look how well that statement aged. With the development update out of the way, let's talk about the latest trailer. Since I've been pretty much challenged to analyze it by the team, I'm happy to oblige. Remember though, this is all speculation, informed guesses at best, crazy theories at worst. The trailer starts with an atmospheric narration. The narrator says that, quote, "memory is of tantamount value to flesh and spirits," unquote. In my opinion, this is a hint why we will take a detour on our way to the Fortress of Regrets. The narrator is surprised the Nameless One forgot likely the mysterious Arenes I talked about in the previous video. The trailer shows a couple of characters in quick succession, but I believe the one in the horned helmet is the person the narrator is talking about. Why? For starters, because I've seen similar artwork of Arenes and because of this picture. A part of it is used in the trailer's thumbnail and it looks like a knife or something, but I found the full one. I'm positive this is the same helmet the armored figure is wearing. We will have to track her down because she's somehow connected to the Nameless One's past, but I'm almost certain that somebody else needs her. The Nameless One is merely a tool for them to get to her. This is where I thought of that dialogue sample I translated in my previous video on Blizzard and Baator. And this time I understand it better. A rough, almost insectoid hand drummed its fingers on the cold stone counter. Soon, the fiend muttered to himself, staring at the glow of the city rising from behind the opposite peak. There won't be 9. A heavy metal door screeched open with a cruel grinding sound as it scraped across the stone floor. A cowled, inhumanly bent figure shuffled into the hall. She opened another one, it rasped with a sick enthusiasm. This one looks promising. I think the first speaker, most likely a Gelugon or an Ice Devil if you will, is looking at Mephistar, the seat of Mephistopheles, the ruler of Khania. Mephistar may look like an icy castle in the official artwork, but it's actually pretty toasty inside. The city did glow, especially since Mephistopheles started experimenting with hellfire. What is hellfire? Basically white-hot infernal fire. The kind that even fire immunity is worthless against. And I mean it could torch Ignis. Obviously, the Ice Devils were not thrilled about their master's project. So, they moved to a colder part of Khania and found a settlement called Nebulat. And I think this is where the dialogue sample takes place. Aside from trying to torpedo the Hellfire research and researchers, Gelugons of Nebulat are also working on their own cold-based weapon. Theoretically to win back Mephistopheles' favor, but judging by the writing sample, someone wants to reduce the number of Lords of the Nine Hells. By one or to one. Of course, struggle between the Lords of the Nine Hells is nothing unusual. But in this particular case, portals and the enigmatic Aerenes seem to play an important role. Hell, could be the narrator in the trailer and the first speaker in the writing sample are the same character. Be that as it may, the narrator is surprised the Nameless One forgot her, and continues to say, quote, "We will remind him and send him on a journey to see what he," emphasis on the he, "has seen," unquote. So we have a we and a he to figure out here. In case of the former, I suspect it is the rebel Gelugon faction. Why would they need the Aerenes? Last time I speculated it had something to do with opening portals, and I have no better idea at the moment. But I will add that opening a portal, meaning finding the right key, is one thing. Locating a portal itself is another problem altogether. After all, the portal to the Fortress of Regrets was right where the Nameless One's journey began all along. And this brings us to the he the narrator puts so much emphasis on. My crazy theory is that it is one of the previous incarnations of the Nameless One, maybe even the original one. You see, Planescape Torment is about memory and recalling past events. The Aerenes might as well have had something to do with the Nameless One's damnation. After all, Aerenes are an important part of the infernal justice system. Or maybe she's a castaway like Fall from Grace. In any case, she will most likely be one of the new companions starting in Act 2. If so, I'm so putting both her and Grace in my party. Anna will be thrilled, she will.
That tongue of yours is gonna get your nose broken.
And speaking of the party, here's an even crazier theory. I think the second companion might be a white Abishai. This is based on this screenshot from almost 2 years back, which shows an Aerenes and a white Abishai in the party. I somehow didn't connect the dots earlier, is all. I think a white Abishai would make a great addition to this traveling circus of ours. They are conveniently immune to cold, and there is one notorious white Abishai by the name of Ashura in Khania. Watch out for eye sculptures that look like, well, Abishai, because they might be more than meets the eye. But back to the story. The important question is, why do those conspirators need the Nameless Ones specifically? Well, it was hinted in Torment that TNO did have dealings with devils before. Are they some of the things he needs to remember? It could explain why the narrator says, quote, "We will remind him and send him on a journey to see what he has seen," unquote. Whatever or whoever they are looking for, TNO's faltering memory seems to hold directions. This would explain why the value of memory is equal to that both of body and spirit. In its own way, memory preserves both the physical and the spiritual and more. How do you reproduce what one feels and thinks when looking at somebody they love, for instance? You need things like shared memories or little details we perceive as unique in somebody. Deionara and Anna might have felt the same for the Nameless One, but they did not see him the same way. And if you're looking to open a portal, the key could be anything, including a memory, which narrows down the list of those who can use it, assuming they even know where to find it. This, I believe, will be part of the journey too. And that's it as far as the story speculation goes. Now, let's look at the trailer's imagery. The first set of flashes obviously shows female fiends, half-fiends, and plain-touched. I'm intrigued the most about the scene with the pentagram and 2 females sitting back to back. For some reason, I think the one on the left might be Antilia, Mephistopheles' half-fiend, half-elf daughter, and his official bard. This is a wild guess, of course, because she seems to be holding something in her hands, like a flute or something. The one on the right is likely a tiefling descended from Beshaba. The white hair and antlers are a dead giveaway. The blue and the red light, as well as the fact that they turn their heads in the opposite directions, also caught my attention, as if to show they represent different sides of the infernal conflict, but I'll leave it at that or else I'll end up writing my own damn mod. Next, we see glimpses of a couple of places, including Sigil, Kanya, and possibly the elemental plane of air. After that, the trailer cuts back to another set of creatures. The first one brings a 1T half-blood to mind. The second one might be a Galugon, but that's only for the lack of a better idea. Here, Anubis, the deity, comes to mind. This frozen creature might be an ancient devil or something even older. Kintyre, an ancient city buried under ice in Kanya, is known for such sites. The scene with the skull and the rose growing on it is also intriguing, but very vague. It does remind me of this area, like it's a vision of some sort, a hint where to go. There's also a Galugon on the screen for a split second. If you don't believe me, they are involved in the story. The trailer closes with a giant creature springing from beneath the ice, surprising the nameless one. I think this is a Remoraz, basically a giant worm centipede hybrid. It would be cool to fight something this huge actually. Planescape Torment doesn't have big enemies like the dragons from Baldur's Gate 2, for instance. And finally, there's another tiny detail that has me wonder. This green glow that occasionally shows up, and it's also visible in one area off in the distance. It's not merely a window dressing. There's just too much of it in the trailer. Unfortunately, the old Arenis character sprite is the only green thing I can connect it to, and this is such a stretch that even I hesitated to speculate this hard, but who knows? Who knows? And this is it. I'll probably revisit the topic soon enough when Act 1 releases. Until then, let me know what you think and share your own theories down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.